So can you please take 4 steps around the circle, go? All right. Go!
Hey Casey, you feeling all right? You don't look
Oh,
very
man,
well.
I'm not feeling it today. Just ain't right today.
Go! Track!
It should never come to this. Our objective over the next few minutes is to show you how a situation like this can be prevented. And if indeed a heat-related situation does happen, how it should be treated.
My son Kendrick went to his first day of football practice back in 1995. He wasn't ready. He didn't get enough to drink at practice. And he died 18 days later in Arkansas Children's Hospital from multi-system organ failure as a result of heat stroke.
Knowledge of the situation would have saved Kendrick's life.
So as parents, we learned that there was a lot that we didn't know. We learned that there was a lot the coaches didn't know. And we learned that Kendrick didn't know anything about what was really happening to his body at practice that day.
She's fluctuating between 104 and 102. This would be a danger zone. We'd be in the red right now, and so just keeping an eye on them and making sure we're checking for signs and symptoms closely.
Jason Cates is the head trainer at Cabot Schools near Little Rock, Arkansas, where extreme heat is a major challenge.
Keeping an eye on them and going to schedule a break here in the next couple minutes so that we can stop, cool off for a little bit, and then come back out and finish. Heat-related
illness are 100% preventable, but knowledge is the key.
We discovered that there was a big knowledge gap, and that coaches didn't know, parents didn't know, and athletes didn't know. And so we focused on education and the importance of educating athletes about proper hydration.
Can we water everybody up real quick? Can we take a break and water everybody up real quick?
Yep. Guys, quick drink. Everybody, quick drink. Everybody.
The best way to solve the problem of heat-related illness is to prevent it from ever happening. This brings us to New England and the University of Connecticut, where located amongst a basketball shrine is the Corey Stringer Institute, the preeminent research facility for heat awareness in the United States. Dr. William Casa has developed 5 keys to prevention.
First of all, it has to do with hydration. Okay, we need to absolutely make sure that there's enough rest breaks, that an athlete can properly rehydrate during practices, and that they have access to the hydration during the entire rest break. Basically, for every additional 1% body mass loss, an athlete is about a half a degree Fahrenheit hotter. So a person who is 3 or 4% dehydrated following a practice, which is very common, could be 1.5 degrees or 2 degrees Fahrenheit hotter for their body temperature. So hydration is very protective for an athlete during intense exercise in the heat. It's one of the most important things they can control to keep themselves safe. But the infrastructure really has to allow them. It has to have hydration available and has to allow the breaks to give them the ample time to drink.
Check with the school. Make sure that they're allowing the athletes and all students to stay hydrated throughout the school day. Studies show that 97% of children arrive at after-school practices already dehydrated. And if the children are not getting access to water throughout the school day, they're not going to arrive at after-school practices hydrated, and that's critical.
Number 2 is heat acclimatization. Heat acclimatization is the phasing in of activity over time, especially during the first week. We know that almost all the heat stroke deaths in America take place in sport in the first 3 to 4 days of activity. So we want to try and protect them during that first week. Heat acclimatization has shown that it to be very protective, ramping up the amount of activity, the amount of equipment, not allowing 2-a-days to like day 6, not doing successive days of 2-a-days. Third is modifying the exercise session or the work to rest ratios based on the environmental conditions. So we use a fancy term called the wet bulb globe temperature. It's the WBGT. That allows us to get a good understanding of the environmental conditions. So it tells us the temperature, the humidity, and the effect of the sun or the globe temperature. But we want to start moving towards people understanding that in higher wet bulb globe temperatures should be more rest breaks and longer rest breaks. One, it lets their temperature come back down, but it also allows them more time to drink.
And so going out and taking a wet bulb globe temperature reading is the new standard. We're trying to get away from the heat index. Heat index is what we now know, that is a reading for if you're doing yard work, maybe you're outside washing the car, things like that. But if you're doing exertional drills, exertional activity outside for prolonged periods of time, then it's good to know what the wet bulb globe temperature reading is in your area. Also know what the surface temperature is, because that is going to play effect on the athletes. And so if you are on the turf, it is going to be hotter on the turf than it would be natural grass or being in an indoor facility.
Number 4 is education. Education is a key foundation to try to prevent heat strokes from taking place. Educating the parents and the athletes, knowing how they can arrive in the best situation to be safe at that practice, whether it be in good shape, being acclimatized, being hydrated. The athlete can have a lot of things in their control, but also educating the athletic directors and the coaches to make sure they understand what are all the things we can do to prevent it from happening, and if there is a problem taking place, identify it at the earliest possible time. And number 5 is an athlete's fitness level. One of the keys to preventing heat stroke is making sure you're really in good shape. So you want to get in good shape first, then you want to get heat acclimatized. Then you want to start doing more kind of all-out stuff in practice. Being fit protects you, gives you a better exercise heat tolerance, and actually allows you to better take advantage of heat acclimatization. So we often tell people get fit first.
Guys, what we talked about at the beginning, make sure you're watching the drum majors.
One of the great misnomers related to exertional heat stroke amongst kind of high school age athletes in America is that it only happens to football players. I mean, we have baseball players have heat stroke, and wrestlers will have heat stroke, and we see it in cross country and track all the time. There can be cross country meets where many people will have a heat stroke. But it also can happen to other participants in your high school, like band members who are asked to be outside for many hours at a time in hot conditions.
Katie, you don't look good. Are you okay?
Yes, I think so.
It's very important to know the signs and symptoms, because that's going to be your biggest game plan to prevent this. So watching out for kids that are heavy sweaters, kids that have salt rings around their neck and their jerseys, or a ball cap that they may wear. Kids that have had this injury before, you always want to make a note of that and keep that on record, because it can, once it happens, they're always susceptible to having it again. Other things to watch out for during a practice: kids that become disoriented. All of a sudden they're not running the right play, but they're, you know that they are usually on par with things. Cramping, nausea, vomiting, kids that are just complaining of not feeling well, feeling like they say that they have a fever. Those are all signs and symptoms that you need to pay special attention to, and try to get them into a cool environment as quickly as possible and monitor them.
Hey Katie, are you okay? You're not looking too good.
Yeah, I think so. Just a little out of it.
So when we're talking about the signs and symptoms of exertional heat stroke, there are 2 key diagnostic criteria. One is extreme hypothermia at the time of collapse. We usually say like greater than 105. And central nervous system dysfunction. So that would be things like someone being unconscious, being in a coma, or just kind of being out of it, being combative or being confused, or things like that. The issue at hand is, though, there are probably some other signs and symptoms that could act as early warning signs that could help someone maybe identify it earlier. Things like a headache, dizziness, nausea, vomiting, kind of unique head or neck heat sensations, unusual fatigue, complaining of extreme tiredness, things like that.
The best way to combat heat-related complications is to prevent them from happening altogether. Dr. Tim Callicutt, whose title I need to insert here, suggests these following preventative tips.
Athletes should try to remain hydrated by drinking fluids throughout practice. They should drink water or some sort of electrolyte drinks during the practice and throughout the day when they're in training for football. Energy drinks really should be avoided. Most of them have large amounts of caffeine, large amounts of sugar. They can stimulate your body. They can actually raise your body temperature, increase your metabolism, which could lead to raising your temperature and causing an exertional heat illness. They can monitor their hydration status by observing the color of their urine. Their urine should be about the color of lemonade. If it gets darker, that would indicate that they are becoming dehydrated. Athletes should weigh themselves, or the coaches should weigh the athletes before and after each practice. They should strive to regain that weight, which is all fluid loss. They should regain that weight within a couple of hours after the practice ends. Coaches and administrators should ensure that proper medical coverage is provided, and that those providers of that medical coverage are familiar with exertional heat illness policies and treatment. Make sure your emergency action plan is consistent with the most recent guidelines for preseason heat acclimatization. Educate other medical staff, athletes, coaches, emergency personnel, and parents about exertional heat illness and proper hydration. Ensure that proper body cooling methods are available and follow national guidelines. This would include an immersion tank, access to water, ice, and this should be set up prior to practice beginning. By following all of these guidelines, participants, parents, coaches, and administrators can reduce the risk of exertional heat-related illness.
It is very important for the school to have an emergency action plan in place.
An emergency action plan, you want to have those in place for all athletic venues, practice or game. Everyone knows that during the school day you have policies and procedures for any event that may happen. The school day is covered, but what happens when the school day is over and you still have kids on campus? And so your emergency action plans for athletics need to consist of inclement weather, what you're going to do if lightning or storms come into your area. You need to have plans for hot weather and cold weather practices. When is it safe for the kids to be outside? What activities are safe for them to do in those extreme conditions? Communicable diseases, injuries, cervical spine, head injuries, concussions, and all these things need to be communicated with your local EMS.
One of the most important things to understand about exertional heat stroke is that when a heat stroke actually occurs, it should be 100% survivable when you're within the confines of organized sport. So if you're in a high school sports setting or a college sports setting, no one should ever die from a heat stroke. And the reason is that we know from the research and from the clinical experiences that if your body temperature can get under 104 degrees within 30 minutes, we have found from tracking over 2,000 cases of heat stroke that survival is 100%.
Coach, did you see anything?
He just passed out.
If a player goes down, the first thing you want to do is clear any kind of trauma, any head trauma, cervical, spine trauma. Once you're able to clear that, then you start eliminating. It's kind of like peeling away an onion. So you start peeling away the layers through your on-the-field assessment. When we realized that the player was unconscious but had not had a violent hit, had no blow to the head, there was no risk of trauma to the head, neck, then we start ruling out what's going on. We realized that the player was unconscious, he was unresponsive, he had been complaining of heat-related symptoms to his players and coaches. So guys, let's get him to the tub, let's get him to the tub.
Time is the major factor in treating the athlete. You have 30 minutes to reduce the body temperature to under 104 degrees.
Down easy, down easy, down easy. Stay behind him right here. Hold him up. Okay, guys, we got him.
Before the athlete is submerged in the ice bath, all pads and the helmet must be removed.
There we go. Set him down, feet first. There we go. Good. Keep his arm out there. Keep his arm out right here. Okay, we're good. We're good. Coach, can you get him?
Where we tell people is you want to get him at least under 104 within 30 minutes is that the research has shown that there's a critical threshold for cell damage that's probably somewhere between 105 and 105.5 degrees Fahrenheit. Now we say get under 104 just to be safe, so that we know we're under this window where there's potential danger.
And so we immersed him. We went to our Cool First, Transport Second emergency action plan so that we could get him in the tub. Good, good, good. Coach, can you go call 911? Get the AED. Get a core temperature on him and start cooling his body rapidly.
Everybody's got to be on the same page. Of course, we have an act that was passed in our state in 2011 and a rule with our association that you have to have emergency action plans for every athletic venue for practice and for games. And that communication between all those entities, in particular the EMS providers, those responders need to be on the same page. EMTs are here.
Good job. Hey guys, He collapsed on us. Football practice approximately 15 minutes ago. No cause. I think it's heat related. Got a core temperature of 104 on him. He's been in the water for approximately 10 minutes. We've got good shivering going on now. Still not real responsive. He did squeeze my hand once, but other than that, he's been out since he hit the ground.
When there is an emergency, it's critical that the EMS folks know what to do. And it's critical that the parents allow the EMS to do what they need to do, and that they understand, EMS is there to help. They're not going to transport them right away. Parents, let the EMS do their job, let them cool your child, and then transport them so that they can save your child's life.
Y'all did a good job of getting him cool before we got here.
Thank you.
One of the benefits from this video is hopefully to engage services, EMS services from across the state, to start conversations with their local school administrators, coaches, athletic trainers, to come up and develop a set of local protocols that work for their service that are based upon national guidelines.
And remember, the most successful prevention starts at home with the parents.
They've got to be the front line of defense to know what's going on at home and to have those kids prepared to come back to school ready to go, and plus to ask those critical questions to the schools and to the administration to make sure things are in place like they're supposed to be. So that partnership has been probably the greatest thing that we've done.
With the cool down first tactic applied, this athlete will survive.